here's a few bucks for hair gel. Well, thank you, although I would never use hair gel. The last time I used hair gel was like probably 1995. So, no way, dude. I'm straight up moose. All I do is use moose.
Think about politics, right? I mean, politics is the most rife with this approach. Because the whole world of politics is all optics. It's nothing to do with substance, truth, falsehood. It's all about... Look at the ads. Think about that. Yeah, think about political ads, right? So when we're in this season of the political... that you turn on the TV and... Bob Corker. When he was a senator, Bob Corker voted for H.R. 504, which took away $1 billion from poor people. Bob Corker voted for a blah, 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 which killed 5,000 old people, right? That's all they do is run that. And all that is a way to make people look bad. And who knows who even cares, right? Who knows if any of that's even true? It's just all those political ads that they run. And why is that effective? Because most people don't know anything about fallacies, don't know anything about good arguments. They fall for the kinds of things that advertising does. Advertising does these scams which appeal to your emotions, right? Buy this beer, you're going to have hot chicks, right? Get this car, you're going to be rich. This kind of stuff. It's just the most basic. I mean, obviously...
Well, I would argue, Jay, that for a long time, like going on 15, 16 years, that this is TV logic and it's... programming. It's programming people, I mean, to what? Not actually think logically, emotionally.
To act on the basis of emotions. Yeah.
And basically, I have all my logic class. We just identify informal fallacies by just watching TV and picking them out.
Yeah, TV commercials are great.
Two is even montage, right? To take two different pictures and put them in sequential order leads to a third idea.
Right.
That itself is what we would call in logic very similar to fallacies of relevance. What that means is, for example, we say that something might be psychologically relevant, but it's not logically. Well, that's really what the TV programmer and advertiser is actually doing. They're manipulating your emotions with images, kind of like the demons, if you think about it, and getting you to get to a third idea, not through logic, but yeah, exactly like you said, usually through emotions. And so our whole society's been trained to think this way, and then nobody takes debate or logic, and it's not valued in our society. It's being pushed out of the university. Like, are we surprised that people come on and think and talk this way?
No, because it's a society in decline. It's a society that's postmodern, that has given up any idea of truth. And, I mean, if truth goes, then clearly debate goes, right? I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. Because here's a great example. So I was reading this book the other day, and I don't remember all the details, but it was telling a story of this woman who, some years back, a couple decades ago, some university professor woman, and she had basically created a hoax papyrus about Jesus not being resurrected, right? I don't remember the name of it, something like the Jesus papyrus or some kind of made up Gnostic, pseudo-Gnostic text. And she was a university professor, and so this got a bunch of media coverage and it got a bunch of exposure. And it was during that period, if you remember, when they were pushing right around the time Dan Brown was going to get popular, and they were pushing Da Vinci Code and the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, all that stuff was being promoted right around the same time back then. And almost all of this was by design. It was a promotional thing. And it turns out her thing, whatever it was that she made up, the Jesus papyrus or something like that, turns out it was completely fake. She had made it up, right? It was a complete hoax. She got discovered for being a hoaxer. And when she was asked about this in an interview, she said, yeah, but it doesn't matter that it wasn't true and I made it up, because there is no truth. All that exists is power relations. That's what she said.
Yep, exactly.
She said, since all that exists...
They caught her with this hoax, and then they gave her a university job.
Yeah, she said. Yeah, so she says all that exists is power and oppressor narratives, and so truth, it's not even a category anymore, right? And if you listen to Father Deacon and Cotel's stream the other day, Father Deacon was talking about the ideas of Professor Vogelin talking about that something being true or false, really, in our paradigm of modernity, post-modernity, modern America, whatever, Western civilization, now that it's not even a question you can ask anymore. There's no such thing as truth. What are you talking about? Truth? There is no truth. There's just power, oppressor narratives, right? Oppressor and oppressor.
Interesting that I really liked about that Vogelin is they were saying it's not. So he was talking about like the kind of forbidden questions, and he references the National Socialists. You know, when the SS officers were on trial, and they said, why didn't you disobey, right? Why didn't you, because remember I said we're just following orders, why didn't you disobey? And they said, well, that was impossible. And I always took that growing up is kind of like, oh, because they were true believers and they thought that was impossible. And then Vogelin's like, in the scheme that was created, it was actually logically impossible for them to do. Like, there was no such thing as going against orders in these paradigms, these neo-Gnostic paradigms, and it applies to the postmodern too. It's not just that you're shunned or there would be negative consequences for asking these questions or promoting. It doesn't exist. They built a framework and an operating system in which questions aren't allowed, or these, logic and reason. That's really what's going on. So it's far worse than it actually seems. It's not just, oh, you'll be kind of banished and shunned, and it's like they're building an operating system in which there's no program to ask questions or to use logic and these things. That's terrifying.
That's the part of the point of the discussion between Winston and O'Brien. I mean, O'Brien basically says that very thing. He says, Winston, you keep asking me about whether the party is interested in metaphysics. And he says, you think we care about that? We don't care about that. All we care about is that you believe what we tell you from minute to minute. We don't care about what's actually true, because there is no actually true. There's only the party, you see. And his point to Winston is that I want you not to tell me that 2 + 2 is 5 because you think that's what I want to hear. I want you to actually believe it because I say it. That's a whole other level, you see. And there's no better example. That's why I did that video a couple weeks ago about how O'Brien is the most evil figure in all of literature. I mean, who's more evil than that? I mean, you could say, okay, well, the devil comes up in literature. But I mean, O'Brien really is supposed to be kind of the devil, incarnate in literature. And he's far more evil than Raskolnikov or the PEDO dude in Crime and Punishment, right? O'Brien is really the ultimate evil.
Back 2003, 4, 5, when I would listen to Alex and he would get frustrated with the callers when they would call in, and he'd be like, "You're on air. Am I on air? Can you hear me?" "Yes, I hear you. You're on air." And I'd be like, "Why is he getting?" Because he has every day 50 times to tell people you're on air. So 50 times I have to tell you, unmute yourself when you come on. When you come on, you will be muted automatically. All you have to do is unmute yourself. Please don't make me say 50 million times a day that you have to unmute yourself.
Real Andrew Tate, which I don't think that is the real Andrew Tate, but he says for $5, what prerogatives do a patriarch have that a regular bishop doesn't have? This is not a slow boy question. It's a great question. So they're canonical privileges, typically within a council or within a jurisdiction. So like in ROCOR, the MP has a say-so in the priests ordained in the MP, in ROCOR as well. So in synods, I'm sure there's synodal privileges, but there's no divine, divine granted status comparable to the Pope, right? There's nothing divine. It's custom. That's my understanding. Because if you'll notice, I mean, obviously in the 2nd century, there's no patriarch, right? So where does patriarch come from? Well, in Nicaea, the patriarchate in Canon 6 is listed for the first time, right? Rome will have the prerogatives like Antioch, like Alexandria, etc., right? So patriarchate is something that's introduced in the ecumenical councils first at Nicaea. And so it has a long conciliar tradition, but there's nothing inherently, there's a providential seal of approval, I guess you could say, through the councils on the patriarchates, but there's nothing inherently divine about patriarchates, as if the church couldn't exist, for example, without patriarchates, you see. And theoretically, in my view, could the patriarchates apostatize? That's possible, right? I mean, they're not so essential to the church that the church couldn't exist without them, because the church existed for centuries without them. The church existed, for example, in captivity at various times without a public patriarchate, right? In different areas under Muslim dominance or whatever, right? So they might have an ethnarch, but they didn't have this public role of patriarch necessarily. That doesn't mean all the patriarchs were gone. You have to. Everything I say has to be so precise, because these crazy people will try to pick it apart. Oh, look, we made a mistake. We got him. He's a heretic. I'm trying to be very precise, very clear about special situations when there's an ethnarch and the Muslims are dominating the people in that area. They're not going to have a normal functioning of the church where the patriarch would be a public figure. That's all I'm trying to say, right? So patriarchate is conciliar honors and privileges. It's not something inherently that Christ gave the apostles. Okay, so it's not. That's why we're not papists. It's not a papal thing. Every Roman Catholic who tries to critique the Orthodox Church will try to read the patriarchates or Bartholomew as some sort of Orthodox pope. It doesn't work like that.
I've seen some of the past. I think some of soy from post-Vatican II converts
bled into Orthodoxy in America. I think it's just sort of the liberalism of Americanism. I think that in America, the challenges, I don't know what it's like in Russia. I've never been to Russia, never been to other countries except for Mexico and Canada and the UK. So I don't know the experience of other countries directly. I'm sure they have their own challenges and whatnot. I think the struggle in America is the tendency to be liberal and pragmatic for economic gain. That's the main temptation in America. So whether you're Protestant, Roman Catholic, or Orthodox, everybody is subject to the same temptations. The churches are all subject to the same temptations in America. So that would be my explanation for why so many people in America operate that way. It also could be, just speculating, a lot of Protestant converts to Orthodoxy. They might have that pietistic bent where they feel like maybe if they're an evangelical convert and they're very into emotions and the praise and worship or whatever, then they become Orthodox. Then they're Orthodox hipsters who are too mystical for theology, and they look down on academic theology or whatever, which is not inherently bad. Many church fathers were the greatest academics and scholars of their day, like St. Photius. So everybody brings their own rose-colored glasses into Orthodoxy, so it could be all those things. I've had some bad habits in theology that carried over from some people. Yeah, well, I think we all do, right? It took me a long time to get out of the Thomist, Calvinist, Augustinian years that I had. So that's going to be true for all of us.